Hi friends, it's Tilly, and today I'm going to share how I created this elegant tablecloth out of an old curtain. When I moved apartments, I got this fancy antique table. It's very beautiful, and I wanted to make sure I didn't damage it since I'm quite clumsy. I also had 3 panels of blackout curtains that I no longer needed, so I used these curtains to make a tablecloth. It's a great project and super beginner friendly, so let's get started. First, I started by making sure the curtains were big enough for my table. I laid out the fabric on top, and thankfully it was plenty big. I used 1 panel for the top and 1 panel for the table skirt. The 3rd panel I didn't use, so I guess I get to make something else from it. Subscribe to see what I turn it into. I placed some weights on top so it wouldn't wiggle around and traced out the top of the table. My table had some design details I tried to capture. It kind of came through in the final project, but not quite as much as I'd hoped. I think this was largely due to how thick the blackout curtains were, and I probably could have been more careful in my tracing. After tracing it out, I then added a 1/2 inch of seam allowance all the way around the tabletop before cutting it out. Then I measured the circumference in order to make the skirt. To determine the length I wanted the skirt to be, I used a towel to visualize where it would fall. This really helped me. I ended up going with 12 inches and added a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Using a curtain also has the added bonus of finished edges. It's one of the great things about this project. I didn't have to do any hemming. I simply used the already finished edge of each side of the curtain. I measured 12.5 inches up from the hem and cut out the giant rectangles. The fashion fabric had a really loose weave, but the blackout side didn't, and I was a bit surprised that it started fraying immediately, so I overlocked all the raw edges. Once that was finished, I stitched together the skirt panels. I gave the seams a good press before stitching the skirt to the tabletop and pressed it again. As I did this, I also made sure to cut out the tag for the washing instructions. That way I don't have to memorize how to wash it. Double bonus points. And there we have it, a beautiful tablecloth. As a learning from this project, I put my seam at the top of the table right before it starts to slope, rather than at the bottom of the slope. I did this because I was worried about placing food or drinks at the edge of the table and having them spill. However, the seam added bulk at the top of the table, which I do not like. Placing the seam at the top of the table also didn't account for the additional circumference of the slope, which then caused less room for the head of the table. So if you try out this tablecloth tutorial, you can keep those things in mind depending on your table shape. Overall, I'm happy with how it turned out, and it definitely helps keep the table protected. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Here are my socials, and we'll see you next time.